Always great chatting with my next guest, the natural Randy Couture, former UFC champion, PFL commentator. Randy, how are you today?
Doing very good, man. How are you?
Doing awesome. Good to catch up with you. We got the PFL playoffs on Friday. Big main event here between Rory MacDonald and Ray Cooper. Just your overall thoughts so far on Rory's tenure in PFL. 1 win, 1 loss. I think some people feel like it should be 2-0, but your thoughts on Rory so far?
Yeah, certainly a controversial one in this last one with what the judges did, and I don't think any of us agreed with the call. The fighter performance rating didn't agree with the call. I think, and I haven't seen that algorithm be wrong yet. So, but it is what it is, and Rory's put that in the right place. He said that, he investigated if he had any options, if there's anything he could do. There's really nothing he can do about it. So he's just like, I had to let it go. I got to move on. I'm still here. I'm still in contention for this title. Obviously, got Ray Cooper staring me in the face, who's a pretty ferocious competitor. So I think Rory's got it in the right spot. He's ready to go. He said he's had a great camp. Feels mentally and physically ready. Put 4 fights under his belt and win the title. That's what he set out to do. So I'm excited for him. And I think this is definitely going to be a huge fight. I've been very, very impressed with Ray Cooper. Every single time he runs out into that arena, something explosive is going to happen.
And you just mentioned it there, Ray Cooper, super exciting. We know the wins over Jake Shields. We know, his level of striking as well. Do we have the makings of an upset, I should say, on Friday with the fact that, Cooper's been really active and, doing quite well in PFL. And I think right now Rory is the betting favorite, but I think Cooper's got a shot here.
Oh, I definitely think Cooper's got a shot. Anybody that thinks he doesn't have a puncher's chance at winning this hasn't been watching because this guy's got ridiculous power. He uses his wrestling very strategically. I think we saw him be a little reckless in that first season. He's toned it down, dialed it in just a little bit, and really got it right where he wants it. Unique guy. I mean, here's a guy that's literally training with his brothers and cousins out of his garage, at the tutelage of his father. It's a pretty unique and interesting story, and he's really upped his game. I think a win over Rory definitely puts him in the talk for what's going on in this weight class across the board.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Any promotion. So,
and of course the co-main event, another really exciting welterweight fight as well. We've got Magomed Karamov taking on Sai. Who do you think takes that one? Because I think a lot of people are looking at Magomed as sort of one of the favorites here to win it all. Yeah,
well, he's obviously a returning champ, and Ray Cooper. This is exactly the scenario Ray wanted. He wanted to fight Rory, which he's now getting to do in the semifinals to get into the finals for the rematch with Magomed. He wants that fight back very badly. So Magomed's as slick and well-rounded a guy as I've seen. Really, really hard to fluster him or get him flapped at all. Very strategic striking. His grappling is on point. I mean, he pulled off that Ezekiel choke. I was just like, what? It was pretty amazing. So he has all the tools. He's definitely the guy to beat, I think, in this weight class.
The other fight I got to touch on, Clay Collard back in action. What a great story with him, leaving the UFC and then obviously coming over to boxing and now in PFL. Big win over Anthony Pettis and a nice win in his last fight. He's got a tough opponent and someone else who beat Anthony Pettis. What can we expect in this fight? I don't think this one's going to the ground.
No, I'd be surprised if it goes to the ground. I think both these guys like to strike. Obviously, Clay's, the boxer and got the very, very sharp hands that he's shown in all of his fights. He's also well-rounded. He can keep this fight where he wants it. I think, Hausch is a little more rough around the edges, but very explosive and very dangerous. His Muay Thai is on point. I think he's going to, look to see him try and keep it out at kicking range and take some steam out of Collard if he can. But that's going to be a very, very interesting fight as well.
Anything else to keep an eye on this card? A lot of names on here. Olivier Aubin-Mercier back in action. I've been excited what he did in his last fight against Marcin Held. And then you've got Daryl Horcher coming in, who people don't remember fought Habib. I mean, this is a guy who's got a lot of experience as well. So just maybe some other thoughts on the card or something that really stood out to you that we didn't talk about here.
Well, certainly those two stand out and are going to be interesting to see how they settle things. Some of that undercard's been shifting around now as we're rolling into weigh-ins. There's been some adjustments. I think T-Bow's fight opponent has changed 5 times literally in the last couple of days. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But I think all of our semifinal fights and our alternate fights are set. So that undercard is going to be a free-for-all.
A lot going on in the MMA world. I know something you've spoken about is this interim title the UFC created for the heavyweights, but Cyril Gahn, what a performance on Saturday with him getting the win over Derek Lewis. I'm sure you caught the fight. What did you think of his performance?
Well, I thought he did a great job. I did not think he would approach Derek Lewis that way because of the power that Derek possesses. He has the ability, even when he looks like he's absolutely gassed, to pull that punch out. And man, he was very impressive with his striking. Showed great power. Now I'm excited to see him fight Francis. I mean, that would be a fun fight, an explosive fight for sure. So we'll see how this all shakes out. Obviously, they used the interim titles. It's a ploy to create interest, to try and create some heat and some interest on a fight that isn't the fight that everybody's looking for. Basically, is what it looks like to me.
And did you catch the montage where they're like, Francis was on vacation, that's why he couldn't defend his title? I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I don't think Francis was on vacation. In fact, I talked to Francis yesterday. Obviously, he's got some serious concerns with what they're doing with his contract and what's the story is. So I'm hoping he sticks to his guns and things settle out and work out for him the way they should. He's earned it and he deserves it. From what you saw with Cyril on Saturday, do you think he has the ability to beat Francis? I think he certainly got the horsepower and a puncher's chance. I think the real question is, how do you deal with this Francis? This Francis got a lot of options now. He's worked very, very diligently in the last 2 years to shore up what he saw as a glaring weakness in his ability to wrestle, to grapple, to stay off the bottom, to not get smothered, to not get taken down. And we saw that in the rematch with Stipe. He's come a long, long way. He's a different fighter than that guy was. So I think he poses some more interesting problems for anybody in that division right now.
The other name that is in this mix now is Jon Jones, and Dana White now coming out and saying Jon will not fight this year. What do you make of this whole situation? Because it seemed like Jon had sort of planned to come up, and now they've just had all these issues with him trying to get a fight. What do you make of it as an outsider?
Well, I think you're seeing a trend, aren't you? The guys that chirp about the cost, the money, what they're getting paid are kind of getting put on the back shelf. They're being iced. They're being put, that's what they're getting for speaking up and trying to demand, some transparency in their fair share. When you got guys like Logan Paul poking Dana White for the exact same thing, I think it's pretty clear what's going on.
Yeah, I did not have Logan Paul advocating for fighter pay on my bingo card this year. It's a little bit strange. Kind of on that note, though, seeing what Logan's done and being outspoken about it and using his platform, does that make you want to watch this Woodley fight a little bit more, just seeing that, maybe he's not as bad of a guy as everyone's sort of making him out to be?
Yeah, well, he doesn't do himself any favors with some of the rhetoric that he brings to try and hype these fights. I want to watch Tyron Woodley just because I want somebody to punch this kid in the mouth, frankly. I mean, and Tyron has that ability. He's as athletic as anybody there. I know he's diligent. He's doing the work with some great boxing coaches, and he'll be in shape to be able to go and do what he needs to do and get it done. So I'm definitely, of the picks he's chosen, this is the guy that is the most dangerous, I think, so far. But he's still picking guys that are wrestlers, that have predominant wrestling backgrounds. He's not picking pure strikers, guys like Anderson Silva and other guys that have that striking background. So he's still being very selective in who he picks. I just think he picked the wrong guy this time.
So do you think Tyron wins that fight? Because that's the question. I believe he's actually the betting underdog right now. What do you think of that?
I think Tyron has all the ability he needs to win that fight for sure. He just needs to stay focused, not let any of this extraneous crap get in the way, go out and do exactly what he trained to do. And I think he's going to be just fine.
Another name that's coming up a lot is Conor McGregor. Obviously, had the injury in the Dustin Poirier fight. Do you think he'll be the same coming back after an injury like that in the prime of his career? What do you make of that whole situation?
Well, I think he's certainly young enough that he's going to heal up just fine from the injury. I think, there's bigger things going on there. I think Poirier has his number, and that happens. I mean, guys just figure a guy out, and it feels to me like Poirier has just got him figured out. And so that's going to be a rough go. Once the guy gets you pegged, there's been a lot of smoke and mirrors and stuff going on in Conor's personal life, and I think they've done a pretty good job of keeping a lot of that out of the media. And I think those are bigger issues for Conor and his longevity than recovering from this injury. I think he'll be fine from the injury.
I almost see that fans are kind of turning on Conor with a lot of the, the tweeting and deleting. We saw the comments he made towards Khabib Nurmagomedov. It's not going over the way it used to, right? Like he used to say things, it was clever, and people are sort of re-quoting it, but now it's kind of like it's almost looking worse. Do you feel like his stock has taken a big hit?
I think you can get away with talking that kind of smack and being that kind of abrasive when you back it up and you win. Now, this is the second one in a row that he, obviously getting injured sucks, and nobody wants to win that way. But not so sure it wasn't going to go the way the last one went too. So when you talk all that smack and raise all that, and then you don't back it up, you got a serious problem.
Yeah. And speaking of bad injuries, Chris Weidman, we just heard, I think last week, that he's going to have to undergo another procedure here. Do you think he comes back? Because I think at this point, with his age and his injuries, I think 29 surgeries or something I was hearing, do you think he'll be able to come back into the cage?
I think that's a little more questionable. I think because of his age, he's not going to recover as quickly or as diligently as a younger guy like Conor will from very similar injuries. And I think you're right. I think there's an accruing of battle of attrition with his body, and he's the only one that can really answer that question. But it sucks that he's going to have to go under the knife again and get fixed up again. And that certainly raises more questions with how he's going to recover and how he's going to be able to come back.
How surprised were you about not only Fedor coming back to fight, which is a fight I know you were supposed to have years ago, and now he's fighting Tim Johnson. I know Tim's a friend. I know he trains at Extreme, but I think some people wanted to see him and Josh Barnett. Just your thoughts on Tim getting this opportunity.
Well, when Barnett's in it, there's going to be heat. There's going to be a lot of other things that a lot of fans like to see. That kind of he just brings that edginess. I think either way, it's going to be a fun fight. I don't think anybody's going to get tired of watching Fedor and just the stoicism that he brings to the cage. That right hand, you better be ready to deal with that. That'll be an interesting and fun one. And I get it. I mean, Josh is an amazing competitor as well, and always brings it. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out.
We've seen a lot of fighters go over to bare knuckle fighting, Chad Mendes being the latest one. Another name that's come up is a past opponent of yours, Chuck Liddell. Have you spoken to Chuck about this? Is this something that you think is a good idea for him at this stage in his career?
I haven't spoke to him about it. Obviously the last fight coming back out after sitting out for as long as he did to fight Tito, I thought that was it wasn't a great idea. We knew he was talking about it. He came in. We did some training sessions together. He trained at Unbreakable to see if he could get himself back up into what he thought was close to fight shape. There are a lot of questions there. I hate to see him, honestly, go out there and get punched in the head anymore. That's just how I feel. I care about the guy. I think he's a great guy, and I think he's taken some punishment. 4 out of his last 5 weren't very pretty, and I just don't think he needs it. But if that's what's in his heart, I support him. If he feels like this is something he wants to do and in his wheelhouse, obviously he has that striking background and should do well with that style. So that's how I feel about it. It's really, I got his back either way. I want him to be healthy and do what's in his heart.
And then another name that's retired, George St. Pierre looks like he was supposed to box Oscar De La Hoya. Dana White blocks it. What did you think of that? I mean, George hasn't been with the UFC since he won the middleweight title. It just seems like another reason for the UFC to kind of, I guess, control the fighters even after they're retired.
Yeah, well, I think if George would have went through Dana White to make that fight happen and give Dana White his glory and his cut of the pie there, exactly what Khabib did, then I think that fight would be happening. So, I mean, that boils it right down to where the issue lies right there. I think that George should still be able to go out and get a boxing license, and honestly, the protections that boxing license and that boxing number give him by the Muhammad Ali Act should take Dana out of the equation, and they should still be able to make that fight happen. So it tells me there's something else going on there. They were going to do it at an exhibition or something like that doesn't actually give him a boxer's license number and protect him from Dana White and the contract that he has with the UFC.
How cool is it as someone who has his name on the side of the gym there, Extreme Couture, to see, the success it's continuing to have? It's gone through, I know, different waves, different coaches. Eric Nixick, though, what an incredible accomplishment he's done with Francis. Like, how rewarding is that for you, just seeing when you started the gym to what it is now?
Yeah, it's been amazing. Obviously, we flourished for quite a long time. And I think when I retired and walked away from the sport, a lot of guys scattered to other gyms and went to other places. And, we brought in Dennis Davis and Robert Follis and Eric Nixick and my son Ryan getting involved and working there and managing and doing all that. And those guys have rebuilt that culture that I think when I was in there every single day grinding out camps, we had an amazing group and an amazing group of guys. And I think they've completely revamped and rebuilt that. And hats off to them. They've done a great job. The team is firing on all cylinders. It's fun to just go in there and watch practice. It's a great group of guys, and that's a tribute to each and every one of those guys. They've all contributed, worked very, very well together, and I think it's a team effort.
Last two questions. You're from Washington State originally. Seattle Kraken is the new NHL team. Does that mean anything to you, or do you not even care about that?
No, I think it's great. When I was a kid, we had the Seattle Totems, and I got to go to one or two of those games as a kid, and I think Seattle is a great place for an NHL team. And hopefully, they get to do some of the early recruiting and get some stars in there like the Golden Knights did and, jump out to a good start.
It's my last question. I noticed your Instagram username is XC I know Extreme Couture is the first part. What's Natch? Yeah. I don't get that other part of it.
Jay Huron used to call me the Natch.
Oh, gotcha. So it's short for natural. Okay. Yeah. I couldn't figure it out.
There's actually another Randy Couture out there that already had the Instagram name. So, it was already taken. So I had to come up with another handle.
Really? And are they still using it? Or is it one of those like dead accounts?
No, I think they're still using it. Yeah. We've looked into it. We want to make sure it wasn't just a squatter, an imposter sitting on the account, hoping they'd be able to get some money to give up the name. But it's an actual guy with my same name. So.
Awesome. Randy, we went way over time. Thank you so much for it. Just remind people, anything you want to plug, any sponsors, social media, anything you want to get out there, I'll give you the last word.
We've got charity ride for the Extreme Couture GI Foundation coming up in Quad Cities on the 3rd and 4th of September. Obviously, the next 3 weeks we'll be in Florida at the Seminole Hard Rock with the PFL on ESPN Plus and ESPN2. Excited about all 4 of those events coming up. So I'm looking forward to being in Quad Cities, raising some money, raising some awareness about our wounded veterans. Get a chance to see Big Tim Sylvia. He's going to come out there and support the event again this year too. So it's going to be a lot of fun.